Hi, it's Sandy Diana, and I want to do a little instructional video today on how to remove embroidery. I have a few samples here that I'm going to show you as to where I've made mistakes. I heard somebody or read someone posted when they make mistakes, they just throw them away. But sometimes you don't want to throw them away and you almost have to take them out. So unfortunately, I have become an expert at removing embroidery. It's not something you want to become an expert at. That means I've made a lot of mistakes. But, I learned from my mistakes, and I've also learned how to easily remove the embroidery. So that's what I'm going to focus on today. So I'm going to reposition the camera so it can be more of a close-up of what I'm working on, and I'm just going to show you a few of my tools right here. So this is Peggy's stitch eraser, and I've seen a lot of you post where, oh, it's so expensive and you didn't like it or whatever. When I first got mine, I didn't like it either. I didn't know what to do with it, and there really is no instructional video on showing you exactly how to do it. So I've just kind of figured it out. I also have these little squeeze micro scissors. I have another pair that looks like this. That's a micro pair of scissors. And I understand there's a micro seam ripper. I don't have it. But I'm probably going to order me one with my next order from Coleman and Company. But I'm going to order that from there. And then I have a couple pairs of tweezers nearby. And I also have a Dollar Tree lint roller. This is going to be your very best friend in just a minute. And I will say that I've bought really expensive ones before, and it drives me crazy trying to get the paper off of it. But this one is an easy paper remover to go to the next layer. So I really like the Dollar Tree, and they're only $1. Instead of spending a lot of money on them. So let me show you some of the samples of some of the things that I've messed up. This is not a mess up. This was just where I was trying to stitch it out to see if I could stitch out on spandex. Somebody had ordered a mask and they wanted to know if they could stitch out on a mask. Well, this is stitched out and it has Tearaway backing on it, stabilizer on it. This one, and it is on knit. This one has a thinner Tearaway, and I'm going to look at this as a sample because this is really challenging when, oops, don't slide away. When you have stitching that is really tiny, it is harder to get out than it is the wider satin stitch. Now, you notice I'm looking from, this still has the Tearaway, the water soluble stabilizer on it. I messed it up, and I've just been using it as a sample because if you notice right here, when I digitized it, it didn't stitch out all the way like that. And I was just trying to do a sample, and I already knew it didn't work because some of the places didn't meet up. So I had to go back to the drawing board and stitch them out. This is on Sherpa fabric, and I really don't know I have never tried to take out this. This is where I did the knockdown stitch, and then because I was just trying to practice doing that knockdown stitch. So I figured it's just scrap, so if I want to try to practice on it today or not. This is the one where I'm going to this one has cutaway stabilizer on it. It makes it the easiest. The only challenge is the fact that it is white on white. But I'm going to remove this one today, and I want you to see how long it takes to remove this. One of the things is this: when I do have a mess up, the one thing you do not want to do is, hopefully you have figured out you already had a mess up before you cut away your extra, because you do not want to hit this stitch eraser on your fabric because you will cut your item. You might not think it's very sharp, but it will cut right through your fabric in no time. And so anyway, the first thing that you're going to do is you want to get rid of the satin stitching. That way you can get down to all of the underlay stitchings that are more of the straight stitching, and that's where you will use your seam ripper. But in the meantime, you're going to use the stitch eraser. I'm also going to do one letter of this without using the stitch eraser because not everybody has it, but I do want you to see just how easy it is. So I'm going to start with using what tools you probably have in your house. So I'm going to use this one, and hopefully you can see really good with what I'm doing. I'm going to stick this up underneath it and just kind of like scoot it, and then I'm going to just cut. That's really easy, isn't it? That is really easy. I just cut all of those stitches just like that by sticking it underneath there. So if you don't have a really good pair of scissors, you probably need to get it. These are the curved ones. These are super sharp, but they're really tiny. If you have ones like this will work also. You can get right up underneath there, and this one is not as easy to use, but it does work, and just there. So now you've gotten this part right here done. It just looks like the hair is growing on it, and you want to snip it all out and get all of these parts. This is where the seam, this will be where your lint roller is going to become your very best friend, because it's got a lot of stuff on this. So I'm going to flip it back over to the front side, and you can use tweezers or either you can use your finger, but literally this just will lift right up off of it. I find it's longer so it takes longer, and you just pull it right on through. But if I had used my stitch eraser, I would have cut it on both sides. So it would not have been this length on here. And I can come back over and take it off, but I'm going to show you how much easier it would have been if I had just used. So I'm going to pull that up, pull that out. And what you should notice is, do you see where there's this other seam? That's the part where you're going to need your stitch eraser, your seam ripper. So I like this. This is the reason why I like this lint roller, is because I can come back and I can get it. But watch, I'm going to come back and I'm going to pick all of this right back up with this lint roller, and it's like magic. So this is just with the regular scissor. And, you know, depending on what kind of stitching you used on your item is going to be dependent. Now, I find that even if you have a towel, I know that the question was on a towel or either stretchy knit, even on a towel or a stretchy knit. All right, if you notice, my lint roller is getting really full, so it's not wanting to pick up as much anymore because it can't. So this is the reason why I like the Dollar Tree. I'm just going to simply unroll the one layer and be done with it. But I still probably can pick up some with it before I toss it and throw it aside. All right, now let's look at the front again. Oh, look, it's almost completely gone. Go back over there with this again. And then you can see exactly where your stitching is. And I like to go ahead in these long ones, I like to trim them down. And when you trim them down, then it makes it easier for them to come out from the other side. But as you can see, you will have a mess all over your items if you don't have this lint roller. And see, even right there, I still have it right there. But I'm going to come back over here, and now I'm going to show you where my seam ripper is going to come in handy. I'm going to try to get it as close to the camera as I possibly can so you can see it, because you've got these white lines. I will say I have found that the seam ripper is not your friend when you use your seam ripper on the good side of your fabric. So I highly recommend that you always work from the back side of your fabric, because you don't want to cut your good side of your fabric. And you can just sit there and just pop these little threads. I only have a single, on this particular font, the digitizer only put one single layer of stitching underneath it. So this one is a fairly easy font to pull out because of that. So really and truly, you don't really have to have. Now this one has got more of that bean stitching. The trunk part of it has more of the bean stitching, so it's just a little bit more challenging to get up underneath it. And I know this is white on white, so it makes it really hard to see the white, but you just have to look real carefully where your stitching is so that you can get your seam ripper underneath it. And you just want to clip the threads, and I'm not going every single one of them. I'm just clipping enough of them to where I can come back with my handy dandy either tweezers or either the lint roller and lift up the stitches. And it will lift it right on up. So I'm going to come back over here and pick up some stitches that I have. We'll come back on this side and I'm going to pick up the stitches. And look, it just like literally like if you don't have one of these lint rollers at home, I recommend that you go to the Dollar Tree right away and go get it. And then it just kind of pulls right on out. That one I probably need to go back and pop some more of the stitches, and it will usually come right up. But that's one letter. Now let me show you how the other letter, how it would have worked if I had used the stitch eraser. So the stitch eraser definitely makes things a little bit easier because it's going to just shave it just like you would be cutting hair, and it's going to be a little bit noisy. And I find that it's easier if you just come back here and and if you notice, it is cutting it off on both sides. So remember the issue that I had where it was like really long hair and I had to go back and forth. And sometimes this will also cut your underlying stitch for you as well. Especially I find if you have the crisscross stitching. I had this apron as an extra because it was this one wasn't actually a messed up one. It was one where, and then you can just take that little ball of fuzz and move it out of the way, throw it in the trash can. But this one wasn't a mix up. There's a actual mess up on the actual apron where it didn't get stitched. So I had to remake another one, but I'm going to fix the stitching on this, and then I'm going to turn around and just use it I'll use it for one of my family members. I don't usually I try not to resell anything that has been messed up because you'll see why. It does leave an imprint. You still can see it. And I have found where you can try to steam it out with your iron or your heat press, and it does cut a lot. It gets it good. Now watch me. I'm going to take this and I'm just going to start rolling it back and forth over top of it. And you can make a hot mess if you want to, but I'm telling you what, I've learned that this little gadget is just so good at getting it right on up. I must not have gotten very many of my stitches, or either there we go. Just the tape was full. Okay, so now I'm down to trying to get rid of these stitches. This is the only part you really need to use your seam ripper with, is those particular stitches. And I already showed you how to do that, so I'm not going to go back and do that again. Now you just pop, and you don't have to do all of them. You just do a few of them, and then you go back with your lint roller and you do the same thing again by rolling it over top of it, and it will remove the stitching. But I'm going to go ahead and, just so that for the purposes of the video, I want to show you a more difficult, this is on knit. So it has this green stitching right here. And somebody showed me that, or I did see where you could put like a tennis ball up underneath it, and you can like wrap it, and that way you can really see what you're doing. But this one, I want to show you this. This is really hard to get a pair of scissors, get the seam ripper underneath it. And even though these are micro scissors, it is still really hard to get that up underneath that because the stitching is so tight. So this is where I really found that this stitch eraser can really be your friend. So I'm going to start again, and I'm going to just, but even when it's really tight, it is hard to get it going. And this doesn't have the really thick cutaway on it, but it is taking it up, and it does take a little bit of work, but you can see it cutting it away right now. Let's see if you can see it from that side. And you want to get your stitching to the point where you can get all of that underneath stitching so that you can use the seam ripper to clip through those threads. And what you're seeing right now is you're seeing the green from the other part of it, but this ball does help you. I would probably, I would have it flat, but the ball I really feel like is pliable. This is a very soft, squeezy kind of ball, and so it kind of bends with my stitch eraser. Okay, so now I've gotten that part right there. If you can see it, I've gotten that to where those stitches are gone on that one side. I'm going to clean up the back side, and I'm going to flip it over. And I still, like I said, I still have it. And sometimes I forget what side I have cleaned on it. And now I'm going to, of course, I need to take this off because I've already used it to its capacity. And start all over again on a new one. Usually this doesn't happen on the, all right. So now I'm going to try to see if this will work the same way with this. Now I'm going to try to, hopefully you can see this. Can you see that? So that one is not working as well. So here's what I have found is that you come back. Am I on the right side of it? I'm on the wrong side of it. No wonder it's not picking it up. All right, so there you go. It does. It picks it right on up. I'm telling you. And this eliminates the mess. This eliminates the mess by using this lint roller. It's significantly. I mean, when I first started doing it and I'm like messing up like crazy, then I'm like, oh my goodness, I am really, this is really bad. And so you can use your tweezers if it gets to a little tight spot, you just get tweezers. But sometimes when I first started doing this, I was almost covered in threads because I had so many threads everywhere, and you can see they just start pulling up. But the stitch eraser is your friend when you come to something that is this small and you have to get this small stitching out, because the scissors almost can't go up underneath that tight stitching that embroidery machine does, because it is pretty tight. Then you go back and you flip it back over. But I wanted to also show you how difficult, so you can see where it's mostly gone on this side now. And I can also, you can see where I can, you can see where I lifted up my stabilizer, so you know it's no longer attached right there in this spot. There is still an attachment right here, and just that simple. Pull it out, save this leftover sticky paper so you can stick their threads there. And then let's pull this one right here, because I just want to show you that I've lifted the stitches up off of it. I have lifted the stitches up off of it, and now I can start again. And this is off of knit, but I want to show you one last one. This is Tearaway. This is Tearaway Stabilizer, and it is a challenge to take stitching off of Tearaway Stabilizer because it is so fragile. It is just that. It will tear away. So it's much easier, it is a much more of a challenge as well when you are trying not to hit your fabric as well. And of course, I've already done this one, and I'm sure that there are some of you that I have one right here that I haven't. This is also Tearaway. So I'm going to show you on both of these. These were just scraps. I'm going to go ahead and start, but you want to try to keep it away from your fabric as much as you possibly can So I'm just using the end part of it right now, trying to get this, but you can do it on knit. You can remove it, but you just want to be real careful, because even though sometimes you feel like this is as dull and it's not doing anything whatsoever, it is, and it can cut right through that fabric before you even know it, and it will get away from you that quickly. So you have to be very, very careful when you are using this tool. And it also will cut the tearaway as well. So here's a little bit of it that I've cut so far, and I'm going to stop right here after I get this curve done, and I just work my way around it. Now, I will say, you could, this type of satin stitching, you could have gone up underneath it with your scissors the same way that I did before. You still want to be very careful, because you don't, the knit is real fragile and that paper is real fragile. I can't even get up underneath that one right there. Try these. So you might have to have several different pairs of scissors, but all I have to say is this. That little Peggy eraser cost, when I bought mine, it cost me $70. And I thought, I have lost my mind spending $70 some on what is no more than a mustache trimmer or beard trimmer. Now, I don't know if a beard trimmer, and you can always just clip this while you're on that side. Once it's raised up, go ahead and clip it right down to the edge of it. And then you are clear of that. And then, but I thought I had lost my mind, and I don't know if a beard trimmer would work just as well as this Peggy stitch eraser. I also know that there's one by Walls that's called a peanut. I haven't tried that one because I've not had the need to purchase it, because my Peggy stitch eraser works so well. So it's just your choice. Now, if you notice, I've got a lot of extra stitching up underneath this letter. So this digitizer has a lot more of your under stitching for that you would have to work with. But the biggest thing is to get it to this point where you can see this, and you can come back here, and then you can start stitching using your seam ripper. So I did successfully do it on that one, and so I don't really need to show you on this one anymore, but it is easier on this one just because you don't have to worry about hitting your fabric as much. You still don't want to grind into it, but this is a totally different type of stitching. Sometimes you got to get it going. Once you get it going, it's going. And the tighter the stitching, sometimes the harder it is to get it to go through it. But at least if you have not torn away your stabilizer at this point in time, you won't have to, it's not as likely to tear your fabric up. It's not impossible, but you're not as likely. So you don't have to guard it. But I find that when you get where these little knots and circles are, it is really tight, and you just have to kind of like let the stitch eraser eat at it a little bit until it can get to where it's cut through it. But overall, I would say that this stitch eraser is worth every penny of it. But making sure you have scissors like these is worth your time. And I'm ready to just order me a whole case of Dollar Tree lint rollers, because they're so easy to clean the paper off of it. When you've used the one roll, it unwraps very easily. Whereas I've bought some expensive ones, and they are a pain to get all of the paper off of them. The ones I'm talking about are the ones where they're perforated and they roll as a rectangle. They are super hard to get off. But anyway, Dollar Tree. Have your tools all ready and be patient. This video took 24 minutes to make, and I have been removing several different ones. So it is time consuming. It is time consuming to remove the items, but it's not impossible to do it. And I hope that this helps a lot of you out there. And I'm going to put this on my YouTube channel. So I want you to like my video and share, and also subscribe. Subscribe to my channel, please. It's Sandy Diana. And I had to wait until later on this afternoon because I was in the middle of teaching when I had received a message and asked me if I'd asked me about the removal. Anyway, so I finished teaching and now I'm teaching you as far as your sewing is concerned. Anyway, you guys have a great afternoon, and I hope this really helps you a lot. Bye.